Good afternoon, everyone. This is Katie Novotny calling in from Premier Marketing. As always, I really appreciate the time you're taking out of your day to join us. Today, we are actually thrilled to announce a call on underwriting, specifically long-term care underwriting. I know I get a tremendous amount of calls regarding pre-quals, conditions that may be considered on a traditional level, a hybrid level, short-term care. And the one thing that we have heard repetitively is long-term care insurance has changed in underwriting significantly, and I have a hard time placing our cases. So I went out to the experts and we had discussed some opportunities of what to look for, how to know when to move forward, and really assuring you that there is still some great traditional options and they are getting through underwriting. So with that, I had asked two of my friends from National Guardian Life. I have our RVP, Lawrence Vivenzio, along with the head of new business and underwriting, Norman Seeman, joining us today to talk about tips of the trade, how to get some business through, and maybe some things to look at as you're in the field. With that, you guys ready to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely, Katie. Thanks for the introduction this morning, and hi, everyone. I'm that RVP she mentioned. I'm Lawrence Vivenzio. And yeah, Katie and I were just kind of sitting down the other day saying, you know what do we think folks have really been asking for? What do they want to hear? And where can we help? And I think traditional LTC over the years has kind of gotten the moniker of, hey, this stuff's really hard to get. And they keep declining things that they used to never decline. But I think the industry has really come to a stabilization point on a lot of conditions. And on a lot of conditions, and this is where Norman has been so helpful and instrumental for us, where there's more medical research now, and we can take a closer look at things because we've learned more about the condition, and we have a little bit more confidence around the condition. So I'm really not here to talk much today other than to thank you all for your business and let you know that we want to continue to be true partners and do all we can to earn it. And I'm hopeful that with this session today, that is one of the things that you take away. We wanted to give you insights directly from Norman, who, the way I describe Norman is anything that happens to an app the second it comes in the door to the second it goes out the door, that includes underwriting. He's the guy. And Norman has extensive, roughly 2 decades of underwriting experience. And he also led a block of claims for, I think, 5 to 6 years as well. I might be wrong on that time frame, but I know he's got a block of claims. So it's really interesting to see how the two correlate together. And that's a big piece of how we view these conditions because we know where the claims come from. So asked my buddy Norman to come on today and share a little bit about what we're seeing, what the trends are, where we can help you have some tips to get more apps approved, what the top reasons for decline were, and things along those lines. And I think one of the common themes you'll hear is, look, the more you can find out, the better. And when I was in the field, I always used one line with clients that was, hey, Mr. Client, they will get your medical records, and I guarantee you they're going to know them better than you do. There might even be things in there that you don't even know are in there. So is there anything in your health history, your medical history, that we haven't discussed yet? And that's when I would really get people to start talking. But Norman, I want to pass the baton to you, pal, and let you kind of have at it. I'll field some questions that I'll throw at you, and if you mention certain things and I can put something on the screen, just kind of cue me in, and I'll go ahead and add that as well. But really appreciate you taking the time, and excited to hear what you have to share with everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence, and thanks, Katie, for having us here. I usually do this pretty open format, so there's the chat box. If there's any burning questions, any comments, concerns, feel free to use that chat box and we'll try to address your concerns. So easy answer, get more cases approved, only look at healthy clients. It's simple as that. But really what we're seeing, as Lawrence alludes to, is as time goes on, technology gets better, testing gets better, we're seeing the decline cases are now becoming much more specific on things that we weren't noticing before. And that's because testing has improved. And so as testing improves, more things are popping up that weren't necessarily a concern in the past. So just looking at year to date in 2024, memory loss and memory complaints is our number one decline reason, followed by major depression and alcohol, which are essentially hand in hand as far as they kind of tied for second as far as the number two reason for declines. And number three, right below that, would be MRIs of the brain. And so these are all things that are getting tied up with what's going on in the world. We saw after COVID increase in the amount of alcohol use across the nation. More people, as they were staying home, they were pouring their own drinks. They were making their drinks a little bit stronger than what you would get at a bar or at a restaurant. People were trying to drink, you know, the loneliness away, the staying at home, the restrictions. Some of that is starting to taper down. People are starting to get back to normal. However, along with COVID, along with that year of isolationism, came depression, came anxiety, came all sorts of interesting things. And when you tie those two things together, you tie in alcohol, you tie in depression, you start looking more at yourself, looking more at your family. And that's where we're seeing these memory complaints start pop up more often.
You know, and Norman, I kind of wanted to prompt you a little bit on the topic of alcohol, because there's a lot of questions that the field generally has about that. And beyond, say, depression and anxiety and things that tie into it, what else are we looking for? Like, is there a clear line in the sand with the number of drinks in a day or a week, or where can we dig deeper? What are some of those tips where we can get more apps approved and find the details that we need as field underwriters to get you what you need?
Yeah, so the big question is how much and how often are they drinking? The general rule of thumb in medical school is double whatever they're telling you. So if somebody is comfortably telling you they have 3 to 4 drinks a day, they likely have a significant problem. From an underwriting perspective, 2 to 3 drinks a day is really what is the maximum. Most doctors are saying 2 or less a day. But we will go up to 2 to 3 a day, depending on the person. Are we talking about a man who's like 6'2", you know, 200 pounds, or are we talking about 5 foot, 100 pound female? Obviously 2 drinks are going to have different impacts on each of them. We're also going to look at any abnormal lab work that they have. So if they're being cagey on the alcohol responses, you could start asking about lab work. Have they having any abnormal liver function tests? There's a test that is getting highlighted more often called MCV. It's mean capsular volume. That's M as in Mary, C as in cat, V as in Victor. Its partner test is MCH. It's Mary Cat Hotel. And if those numbers are elevated, it could mean all sorts of things. It could be alcohol, it could be cancer, but chances are it's related to alcohol use. So if they say, yeah, I don't drink that much, and you ask them, you know, oh, what was your last lab work? If they're willing to share those results with you, and you see elevated liver function test, or you see those MCV, MCH elevated, that's your first level of concern as far as there might be some heavier drinking than what they're letting on to. Recently, we just had a case where they told the agent they were drinking 1 or 2 drinks on the weekends, perfectly normal. When we did our phone interview, they told us they're drinking 3 to 4 shots every day. And they thought because they were drinking vodka, that was healthier for whatever reason. We couldn't figure out. They said, oh, but it's vodka, you know, so that's okay because it's not whiskey. So it's interesting how people will come with different excuses to tell themselves that they don't have a problem. Otherwise, since you're not seeing people in person, you're not, going to their houses. It's not like you're going to see, bottles of whatever stacked on the shelf or recycle bin full of beer cans. Those aren't really going to happen anymore. You can't say like on Zoom, hey, what's that 12-pack sitting on your desk? So alcohol is a difficult thing to address. It's just going to be asking the questions, how much do you really have? Are there any times you have more often? What would it say in your medical records as to how much you drink? And are there any abnormal lab work?
Yeah, and that's always a fun one too, when, they admit to the person on the phone interview, 3 drinks a week, and the medical records say 7 to 10 a week. What do you have in your medical records is a key one there. Hey, I wanted to tap into another item you mentioned, and that I think is a newer one that many people might not be asking about yet, but I feel like we all should be building this into our pre-qualification questionnaire. And that is, have you ever had any imaging of your brain? Because I think what you've been finding is generally, if someone's had imaging of their brain, they're at an age where it was for a pretty good reason, and we're finding some kind of abnormalities in there. If they get a yes to that question, what should be the follow-up questions, and what should we look for as field underwriters?
Yeah, so if anybody admits to having imaging of the brain, the first thing you should ask them is, can they provide you a copy of that test results? And you'll want to put it in front of an underwriter so that they can look at it and let you know if there's going to be a concern in underwriting. So as I alluded to at the beginning, as we get technology improves and the cost of MRIs and imaging goes down, we're seeing more and more people get MRIs done at earlier ages for less concerning reasons. So 10 years ago, if you wanted to get an MRI of your brain, your doctor would have had to put, they thought you had a stroke, they thought you had a TIA, you hit your head in a serious fashion that they needed to check for bleeding. You were having migraines multiple times a day. Now we see MRIs of the brain happening for routine headaches, and doctors are willing to do repeat MRIs on an annual basis. So with that comes with peeking behind the curtain, so to speak, and seeing things that are probably, routine in the medical world, but from a long-term care perspective, increase the chances for future claims risk. So example, some of these microvascular changes, which we see on probably 90% of MRIs of the brain, studies from Cleveland Clinic document that I think it's one out of 4 stroke patients had microvascular changes in their brain prior to the stroke. And I want to believe it was 35 or 40% of patients with some form of dementia also had these changes in their brain prior to the diagnosis. So this is for traditional long-term care. When you see those kind of numbers with dementia and strokes being the top 2 claims reasons, those are going to get kicked out in underwriting. So anytime your client is mentioning they've had migraines, they used to play football, they have headaches, you want to ask them, have they had any imaging of the brain? And if so, what was the most recent? And if they can get you a copy of that report and you can put that report in front of an underwriter, that is going to be a key to success in making sure you can place a policy with a traditional long-term care product.
It's very helpful. Thank you, man. Hey, another topic that I know Katie even mentioned earlier that many producers are asking about is waiting periods for various things. And Katie, if you want to chime in and elaborate, please feel free. But I believe that'd be more around medication waiting periods and even physical therapy waiting periods.
Yeah, I think that one of the common things I often hear, and as I was mentioning to you, we had a situation just recently. If there's been a recent accident, recent illness, kind of best feel on stability regarding each of those topics, and if there's questions, how to get some answers, I guess.
Yeah, so stability period with NGL, I mean, we'll start with the basic physical therapy. A lot of times people will, overdo something, they injure their knee, they'll do some physical therapy. Generally speaking, we say to 3 to 6 months is the standard range for physical therapy. But really what you want to do is when you get into discussions with the client and they say, look, I just injured my knee, the doctor prescribes some physical therapy. You want to start finding out, well, how many sessions did they schedule? How much limitations do you really have? Is this more for strengthening, or is this, you have a limp now and we need to settle the limp? Most of the time, that 3-month period is the period that will tell us that physical therapy is successful, this problem's not coming back. A lot of times when we get pre-qualification, we'll get, oh, the client finished physical therapy a month ago. They haven't had any problems. There's no further visits scheduled. A lot of times you'll get a response back saying, okay, to take the application now. By the time we get through underwriting, we'll be closer to that 3-month mark. And as long as there hasn't been any flare-ups in pain or problems, we're happy to issue those cases. But that generally is what the waiting periods are for, is to determine that your client is maintaining what they're supposed to do. There hasn't been a recurrent of whatever it is. Medication changes, something like blood pressure. We see people change blood pressure medications quite often. We really don't need a waiting period on that. However, if somebody just started on blood pressure medicine because their blood pressures were wildly out of control, and a diabetic, if their diabetes was never in control and they just started medication, those ones we may want to do a 3 to 6 month waiting period as well, just to make sure that your client is sticking to the plan, they're taking the medications, they're doing the follow-ups that they need to do. And that really, industry-wide, that's what the waiting periods are there for, is to provide some confidence that your client is doing what they're supposed to be doing and there's been some stability in their condition.
Absolutely, man. And hey, everyone on the line, really appreciate your time. I know we're supposed to do a quick 20-minute snippet type of a thing and give you the highlights. And I'm really hopeful you're able to take away maybe some of the top reasons for decline, how to address them, how to look at them. But Norman, if we could conclude a little bit with just kind of some overall underwriting philosophy and a little bit more on maybe how we take a look at things from a high level perspective, to give some folks the solace and, hey, long-term care has evolved and it's not the big scary underwriter. There's not, that's why we wanted you to see Norman. He's not the evil mad scientist in a lab coat with a big red decline stamp hovering over a file, right? He's a human being. We can talk to him, and we wanted you to have this level of access. So you can give us a little bit about that philosophy and kind of, how we're looking at things overall. I think that'd be great.
Hey guys, before you do that, can we address, I have 2 things that have come up.
Perfect.
One specifically on diabetes. Diabetes with comorbids, what type of diabetics, things that they should look for, ask for, and NGL's views on them. And then the other one is build. So if we can address those 2 things.
Yeah, I'll knock out build because that's pretty easy. So if everybody has access to our underwriting guides, we have our build charts in there. We're pretty, as far as medical standards go, we're pretty liberal as far as BMI goes. We don't mention BMI in the chart, but if you did a BMI calculator, you would see we go pretty far up on the BMIs and still allow for coverage. And our Premier Guide, which is everywhere but California. Yeah, Lawrence, if you're going to pull that up, I think it's page 6. Or there you go, page 9. Sorry. So if you see your average female, say 5'6", she could go all the way up to 216 pounds, and if she had controlled blood pressure, controlled diabetes, controlled cholesterol, if she had a heart attack and she was 215 pounds, those would all still fall into Premier. So Premier is a large umbrella that takes on a lot of risk. When you see this individual consideration column, those are the cases we start looking at the comorbids, and if your weight is in there and they have diabetes, you want to make sure their diabetes is in optimal control. If they have blood pressure, you want to make sure their blood pressure is under optimal control. But if you see the decline number, that is a line in the sand, because we feel we are pretty liberal. So, 5'6", 242 pounds, if you're there or above, there really is a lot of concern for future risk. But in an obese individual, if they had no diabetes, no blood pressure issues, no real problems, and they were just in this female 5'6", 240 pounds, there is a chance we would be able to consider them. So our build is pretty wide open. It's pretty explanatory as to why you would say decline at the line we say decline. But going into diabetes and the comorbids, I always say there's a trio everybody should remember is diabetes, smoking, and coronary artery disease. So when we say coronary artery disease, we're not talking about cholesterol, blood pressure. We're talking about angioplasties, stenting, bypasses, heart attacks, significant cardiac events, that would, any combination of diabetes with heart disease or smoking, if you take those three and you combine any two of those three, you're going to end with a decline decision based on the vascular risks. Diabetes is the one disease that attacks everything. It attacks your kidneys, it attacks your vascular system, it attacks your nervous system. So when we're looking at diabetes for NGL, number one knockout, insulin. We don't take insulin. Number two knockout, smoking, heart disease. And then the next questions you start asking are, what is your control? What is your A1C? And we want to look for A1Cs that are ideally 7.5 or less. We do go up to 8, but those would be, very individual consideration look at those. So ideal candidates, 7.5 or less on the A1C. What you're going to start seeing now more is with these weight loss medications like Ozempic, Mounjaro. You're going to see more people claim they don't have diabetes, but the doctor told them they have diabetes because they wanted to get on the medications, which we have to underwrite those people. We'll just look at their current height and weight, and that's the other thing with the control of diabetes and kind of going back to height and weight. We want to establish that this is their A1C pattern, this is their weight pattern. We don't want the person that says, I was in the doctor's office at Christmas and I weighed 325 pounds, but today, in the middle of June, I weigh 250 pounds. Well, we want to know, how did you lose that much weight? And are you really going to keep it off? Because we all know the struggles with diet. We know that people tend to put weight on after they stop the diet. Generally speaking, if somebody's able to keep their weight off for a year, then they're not going to go back to their old weight. So if you see somebody who's had recent weight loss, you want to say, what's been the pattern? Has it been sudden? Has it been gradual? How long have they been stable on that weight loss? And all of these, you're welcome to reach out to an underwriter, ask them for questions as you're taking the application, as you're working with the client. And if there's ever a chance that the underwriter responds and you still have additional concerns, what should I ask? How do I approach this? Just reach back to us. As Lauren said, we're human. We're not, robots. We're not, wearing eye patches and declining everything. So hopefully that helps. If anybody else has anything, we're here to answer those questions.
Absolutely, yeah, and I have that on the screen now, just so you know where you can get to an underwriter to do pre-qualifications, that 888 number and the status email address. Happy to have those dialogues. Believe me, they don't want to decline your cases as much as you don't want them declined. So anything we can do to, get to those positive outcomes together, please chat with us. That's what we're here for. So with that, I think we're roughly nearing the bottom of the hour. Katie, anything else you'd like for us to address, or Norman, a couple concluding lines on kind of maybe that overall philosophy on what we can do to continue to help folks get those apps approved?
Yeah, really, it's about having the conversation with your clients. What everybody does, have the conversation with the client, really have to dive deep into medical records and medical history. As uncomfortable as that is where all the details live, and that is where the decisions are going to be made. Have that conversation early, have it, be multi-fronted between you're getting information from them, you're asking them questions. Google is your friend. Google the medications, Google conditions. Email us, ask us what other things you should be worried about on that specific person. And really, we take a look at each individual as an individual, and we try to get the whole story between our phone interview and our medical records review. We try to get a full story of that individual person and see if we can't make some kind of an offer.
So, hey, if I was still in the field and on the line, I think my takeaway would be, hey, you've got some real people who truly want to take a full picture look at what's going on with your client. We're here to approve your cases. You've got access to the lead guy in the process, and NGL overall, just from a product, a process, and underwriting standpoint, we want to make sure we're truly a partner for you, a go-to product that comes out of your briefcase, and we're doing all we can to earn the business. So Katie, I really appreciate you letting us have this forum and this time today to chat with everybody, and I'll pass the baton back to you.
No, I appreciate it very much, Norman and Lawrence. I really do. As a reminder, and I know a lot of you have our pre-qualification form and underwriting guides and whatnot, but truly just pick up the phone. If there's a question, if there's a situation that we need to run by either Lawrence or Norman or anyone else at that point, what I want to stress is the fact that we're asking the questions. As I tell most of you, when we do long-term care, we are totally opposite of a lot of the products that you're out there selling. We try to do a lot of underwriting up front. At the application point, we've looked at the case, we're pretty confident, and we have not only a preliminary, but we have some premiums that we're selling off of. So when we're doing this, please, I cannot stress enough, pre-qualification, give us a call here at Premier, and we always have that direct line that we can get a hold of NGL or any other carriers that we may need at that time. So with that, I appreciate all of your time. Norman, Lawrence, as always, thrilled to have you. I appreciate everything you said. And with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And we'll be doing our next call shortly. I will send out an announcement probably by the end of next week. So with that, everyone have a great day. Thank you again, Lawrence and Norman. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks. Bye.